Hey everybody, this is Kim Cullen. Those of you who, well, I guess if you're already here, you already sort of know who I am. I'm a personal injury lawyer in Winter Park, Florida, and I am so happy that you're here today. These are some awfully strange times that we're living in these days, so I hope everybody who is watching this video is safe and is doing okay. And I think, whatever happens with the times that we're in, they're only going to get better eventually. And I hope everybody just sticks together, because I think, once we get past all this, we can get back to, our lives and making things happen. So thank you so much for being here today. As you probably know from the advertisement or the little promotional thing that we did, my plan today is to talk about how COVID-19 has affected and continues to affect personal injury cases. We've been some of the lucky ones. We've been able to stay open throughout this COVID pandemic. We're, I guess, is considered to be an essential business. So we were very happy that we were able to stay open and continue working with our clients and working on their cases. That's a great thing, but it hasn't been without its problems. And so I want to go over a little bit with you about some of the problems that we've seen and some of the issues that we've had. So probably to start off the talk, probably a little history is in order. So here in Orange County, where I am, the Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings declared a stay-at-home order for everybody but non-essential businesses on March 26th of 2020. And of course, that shut down many businesses, including a lot of doctors' offices, chiropractors, physical therapists, a lot of the people who typically would treat our clients. So that caused a little problem with people getting medical treatment, which I'll talk about here in a couple more minutes. As I said, law firms remained open the entire time, so that's a good thing. Shortly after Mayor Demings declared a stay-at-home order here in Orange County, Governor Ron DeSantis did the same thing, a statewide order on April 3rd of 2020. So I'm recording this on June 5th. So, we've essentially been on shutdown or in various stages of shutdown for the last 2 months. So, but before either of those things happened, the Florida Supreme Court had already suspended all the jury trials in Florida, and that started beginning on March 13th of 2020. And then the court suspended all non-essential court business on March 17th of 2020. So that's almost 3 months ago. So, and that's really what has been most significantly impactful or impacting our personal injury cases, is the fact that in large part the court system has been either shut down or working very slowly for the last 3 months. So since May of this year, most of our judges have now started to do hearings again. So we've got, at least they're having some interaction with lawyers, and we're able to move some cases along, but there still are not any jury trials, and they're currently suspended until July 2nd of 2020. But the rumor mill that we're hearing from various people who know people is that live jury trials with live jurors, are going to be suspended for months more, and perhaps until the end of the year. And particularly with civil cases, which is what we work on, cases involving disputes over money and that kind of thing. Those cases, I'm guessing that those cases will not be being tried, will be getting tried until the beginning of 2021. And the reason being there's a lot of criminal trials now that are backlogged or that haven't happened, and there's some constitutional issues involved with people having criminal trials on a speedy basis or on a timely basis. So my guess is that all of the judges that typically are assigned to civil cases will be trying a bunch of either small or faster criminal cases through the remainder of the summer and into the fall, and perhaps even into the beginning of next year. So that's kind of what's happening with trials now. Now, I just saw an order today, I think it came out yesterday, where the Florida Supreme Court has started what they're calling pilot programs in several jurisdictions around Florida, and this is where they're going to be toying with doing trials by Zoom. So presumably, there'll be jurors would show up sort of online or in a virtual sense to jury selection. They would be selected somehow by the attorneys. The judge would be sitting in the courtroom with a camera on him, and somehow they would try to do a trial that way. Currently, that procedure is required. It requires the cooperation of all the parties. In other words, all the parties involved in the case have to stipulate or agree to it. And in the cases that we have where it might be appropriate, or they're in the appropriate districts for it, or circuits for it, I should say, we haven't had any success in having all the parties agree to it. So it's a great idea, I think. It'd be an interesting idea. I'm not sure that it's the best situation or scenario for our clients, most of our clients. But with this requirement that all the parties agree, I'm just not so sure how many cases are actually going to get tried under this pilot program. So I'm not sure it'll be particularly helpful or useful or even applicable to the cases that we have. So let me talk a little bit about, I think maybe the easiest way to discuss the cases and the claims is to talk about them in two sort of sections. One section would be cases that are in suit. So those are cases that we have not been able to settle or resolve, and where we've had to file a lawsuit against the defendant or defendants in a case. So these are cases that are before the court. A complaint has been filed with the court. Typically they're in the discovery phase, or in some of our cases now they're past the discovery phase, and we're getting to the point where we would like to get them tried, but we can't. And that's as opposed to cases that we call pre-suit cases, and those are cases where they're usually much newer. Our client's been involved in some kind of accident, and we're negotiating with the insurance company, or preparing to negotiate with the insurance company to see if we can get some sort of a settlement or resolution worked out. So I want to talk about those in two different chunks, because those cases are being affected in really different ways. So the first one I'm going to talk about is in-suit cases. So we're finding in in-suit cases that these judges' orders, particularly the order that's suspending jury trials, is really having a pretty serious impact in a few cases in some interesting ways. So in some ways, the cases have not been affected. We're still able to do just paper discovery like we always have, and that seems to be going along smoothly in the cases where that's the stage that it's in. Depositions, they've slowed down a little bit, but we're still doing them. In fact, we've done several recently where they're via Zoom, and it tends to work out okay. Although in cases where there are a lot of documents and we want to show witnesses a lot of documents, it gets difficult when we're not all sitting around the same conference table. But depositions are still going forward. We're kind of having to pull teeth a little bit to get defense lawyers interested in doing that, but they're still kind of going forward, so that's a good thing. The judges are doing hearings, still doing hearings. A lot of them are either by Zoom or by phone, which is fine. It's not quite as good. In fact, some of the more important hearings, I really wish that we could be in person with the judges, but we're working through it, and I think it's working okay. So things are moving along in those cases in general. We've done a few mediations recently via Zoom, and that's worked out pretty well too. From a logistical standpoint, was not particularly sold on it in the beginning because I wondered how it would work, because typically we do a lot of meeting with our clients, and the other side does meetings with their clients privately so that we can't hear each other, and so there was some concern about how that would work in a Zoom setting. But the mediators have been really good about setting the technology up so that we have our own private meeting room with our clients, even when we're not in the same room, and the defense has theirs set up the same way. So the mediations have logistically gone well. Now, what I can say about the recent mediations that we've had is they've tended not to settle, and that could be because the cases just aren't going to settle, or it could be because the defense lawyers and the insurance companies in all these cases know that we can't get to trial in a timely fashion, and so they don't have as much incentive to avoid a trial, because most personal injury cases, and probably any kind of civil dispute, most of them get resolved because there's uncertainty and both parties want to avoid uncertainty. And so a trial, the uncertainty of a trial, is typically what influences both plaintiffs and defendants to get cases resolved. So if we don't have trials sort of pending, or the threat of a trial out there, then it makes it much harder to get cases settled. And that's been the primary sort of negative impact of this COVID virus and the judge's orders, the Supreme Court's orders about jury trials. So with our litigated cases, we're finding that the defendants have sort of pulled back and are much less interested in settling the cases. Now, that doesn't mean that the defendants aren't working. In fact, in some ways, we're getting more volume of paperwork and motions and that kinds of thing from the defense bar, from the people that represent insurance companies and large corporations and the defendants typically in our cases. We're getting the same or more volume of work from them than we ever have, which is kind of interesting since we really don't have anything particularly urgently pending now because these trials have been set off for so far down the line. But the defense bar, the folks who get to bill by the hour and who generate their income that way, they seem to still be working the same way that they always have, if not even a little harder at generating this kind of paperwork. So that's kind of an interesting side note too. And it'll be interesting to see if the insurance companies keep paying their bills, if really, there's nothing coming up in those cases. So that'll be interesting, an interesting thing to see. All right. Talked about trials. So, again, there will be trials again. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen, and that's just something that we don't know at the moment. We don't know exactly when trials are going to happen, so we're just going to have to keep pressing on as best we can. The other thing I wanted to mention about jury trials was something that I heard from the Orange County Clerk of the Court's office several weeks ago. And it was, even if the Florida Supreme Court said tomorrow that we're going to start doing trials, the clerk of the court, the people who run juries and send the summonses out for juries to show up for jury duty, they're still not confident that that they're going to have enough people show up for jury duty. The juries, even before the Supreme Court put limitations or restrictions on jury trials, the clerk of the court was having great difficulty getting people to show up for jury duty. The number that I heard was only 15% of those people who had been summoned for jury duty were actually showing up for jury duty. And so they were trying to do a bunch of trials up in the courthouse, but they just didn't have enough juries to go around. And so I think some of the concern about moving forward with jury trials, even if the court system thinks that they can contain things and create social distancing and that sort of thing, I think one of the big concerns is that people still won't show up because they just won't feel safe. And so I haven't yet heard a good solution for how do you deal with a jury room. So in Orange County where we are, the jury waiting room is about 500. It can house about 500 people. And typically, there are probably 300 or 400 folks in there at any given time as they pick people to go upstairs to the courtrooms and things like that. So that would still leave a bunch of people stuck in this big room together, breathing the same air and that kind of thing. So I'm just not quite sure that even if you opened it up tomorrow, that people would show up, and that's still a practical problem that we would have trying cases. That doesn't solve really the problems that we have internally about what do we do about these cases, but it's just something to think about. So what do we do on litigated cases? Well, there's not really a lot we can do. We're still doing the work that we can do on the cases. If there's discovery that needs to be done, we can still do that. Interviewing witnesses and things like that. But at some point, you're ready for trial, and there's really no more work that you need to do, and no more money that you need to spend. And that's where we're probably going to be on several cases by the end of the year where we can't get them tried, but we're ready to go, which is not a bad thing. But from a lawyering perspective, the cases, when they're ready, they're ready. And there's no need to do sort of overkill on them with make work or busy work and stuff like that. So from our end, that's kind of where we are. Now, what can our clients do? Well, again, there's not really a whole lot they can do either. If they're still hurting, if they're still having problems with their injuries, they can continue to go to the doctor. They can continue doing physical therapy. They can do the home exercises that the doctors gave them to do at home, so they can continue taking care of themselves. Of course, we want them to stay safe from the virus as well. Another thing that they can be aware of is that while we've got all this downtime, or a lot of people still aren't back to work, they're working from home still. It wouldn't be out of the question or out of the realm of possibility that the insurance companies or the defendants in these cases might perhaps have surveillance people out watching them. One of the challenges to surveillance people is finding people in order to watch them or video them, because most people are working, they have errands and all kinds of things that make them hard to find sometimes. So with everyone stuck at home, it makes it a lot easier for private investigators to find people. So if you're stuck at home and you have a big case, you think, and you're bogged down and because of this lack of trials, then you probably need to be aware that they could be watching you. Not that it's going to change anybody's behaviors probably, but just be aware. That's one thing that could happen. So in terms of in-suit, we're definitely seeing some slowdowns. We're definitely seeing some reluctance from insurance companies to resolve these cases because, again, the pressure of a trial has been removed. So that's it for cases that are in suit. Pre-suit cases. So pre-suit cases, the biggest challenge that we were seeing with pre-suit cases was medical treatment, because for about 6 weeks or 2 months, a lot of the doctor's offices were shut down, and even doctors who were preparing to do surgery on our clients were not doing them because they were non-emergency surgeries. So not particularly elective, but they weren't drastic emergency, and so everyone wanted to keep people out of the hospital as much as possible just so that they wouldn't be at risk for catching this virus. And that's all fine. And so a lot of our clients were having some concerns about, well, I haven't been to the doctor in a month. What's going to happen with my case? And I don't think there's going to be any negative impact on the cases because our clients couldn't go to the doctor. It's not that they didn't want to or that they weren't hurt, but the doctor's offices were shut down or they just couldn't get in to see the doctors that they needed to see. So now that seems to be all over. As far as I know, almost every doctor's office that we do work with seems to be open. I think some of them have scaled back their scheduling a little bit, so I think that there are fewer people waiting in the waiting room and that kind of thing, or they're having folks wait out in their car before they come in to get treatment. That's probably all a really good idea anyway. But I think that the problem of medical treatment is no longer, and I don't anticipate that getting worse or decreasing as we go forward, even if we have sort of a second wave of virus, which I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we don't have to worry about. But so the medical treatment issue is no longer there. We are noticing that record retrieval on cases is getting a little bit slower, or has been a little bit slower, and I think probably a big part of what we do is go along behind our clients and order their medical records and bills so that we have that information to share with the at-fault party's insurance company. So I've noticed that slowing down a little bit, and I think a lot of that has to do with doctors' staffs working remotely or not being in the office quite as much. I think they're working in shifts or a part-time kind of thing. So record retrieval has been a little bit slower for us, but I think that's understandable, and it's not going to affect our ability to properly handle any of our clients' pre-suit cases. So the insurance companies, and those they're important to us because that's who pays the damages in our cases. So It's our impression that from the insurance company standpoint that most of the adjusters that we're dealing with are working remotely. They're working from home. I think that a lot of the big companies have been doing this for a while anyway, or with a lot of their adjusters, so it really isn't that big of a change. Most of the insurance companies went digital a long time ago, so it's not like the adjusters have to have a paper file in front of them, that kind of thing, at least with the big carriers. So we haven't really noticed any change in terms of, with most of the insurance carriers, in terms of communication with adjusters or having adjusters um, being available to evaluate cases and that kind of thing, so that's good. It seems like most of the carriers are handling the cases the same way, the pre-suit cases the same way that they always have. So that means that if a case is pretty straightforward, if our client has real damages and the insurance carriers have small coverage, then typically they've just been paying them like they should be doing and like they normally do. So we're not really noticing a real difference in the pre-suit cases and how the cases are being evaluated. That's not to say that won't change, but as of right now, at least that's our experience. If anything, I think we've noticed the carriers are a little bit more eager to settle the simple ones than maybe they have been. And I think that could be for a few different reasons. For one, I think the insurance carriers are pretty concerned about new claims coming from business interruption claims from businesses that have been shut down because of the pandemic. And so I think they're trying to make or create some adjuster volume or capacity so that they can perhaps look at resolving or analyzing those claims. So in general, we're not really finding there to be too much negativity or problems with the insurance companies on pre-suit cases. There's still eventually, if there's a long backlog in jury trials, that's going to seep into the way that the insurance companies evaluate the pre-suit cases too. So we're going to hope that that doesn't happen. And then another thing that has to be said is, right now, as of today, I think I saw some more encouraging unemployment numbers. I think unemployment is actually better at 13%, which is not a good number. But if the economy stays the way that it is or gets better, then I think it's going to be more likely that insurance companies are going to continue to handle the cases and evaluate them the same way that they have been now. So if the economy tanks or if it goes down or becomes more of a problem, then I think insurance companies may start pulling back a little bit and tightening their belts, because when their portfolios suffer, history tells us that they tend to be a little bit tighter in terms of settling or resolving claims. So we just don't know what's going to happen with that, but for our client's sake, we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that everything stays sort of the same as it is right now. So in terms of clients in pre-suit cases, I think the clients need to do what they've always done. Our expectation has always been, at least when they become clients of ours, that we'll handle the paperwork and the business end of things, and they just need to focus on getting to the doctor and getting well and taking care of themselves. So that's the same advice we're giving our clients today that we did before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, is just take care of yourself, make your doctor's appointments, do what the doctor's telling you to do. If they refer you out, go to the referrals. If they give you home exercises, do your home exercises. Just keep taking care of yourself and getting better, because we can't move into place and try to get cases resolved until our clients reach what's called maximum medical improvement, which means they're as good as they're going to get. So that's what that's the advice we've given our clients for 25 years on what to do after they were involved in an accident, and that's the advice that's going to still apply even if we're in this COVID-19 situation. All right. So really, that's what I have in terms of prepared remarks today. We're doing the best that we can with this COVID stuff. Nobody knows where it's heading. It seems like it's getting better, but now that we've reopened our society a little bit, it would not surprise me if we have a greater number of cases and we have some more nervousness out there in terms of people catching it, things like that. So I asked some folks to do some questions for me, before we started the presentation today. So I'm going to cover some of those questions. And one of those questions was, what's the office setup? If I want to come meet you guys in person, does your staff wear masks? And I would tell you our office setup, we're a small firm, but we have plenty of space. So we're happy and accommodating to meet clients here in the office. We're happy to wear masks. We typically wear masks when we're, in a place where we know we're going to meet somebody. So we're happy to do that for anyone who wants to come in. I will say that a lot of our communication the last 3 months has been via Zoom, and it's really worked out awesome. I find that to be much preferable even to a phone call, just because it's nice to be able to sort of look at somebody and see their facial expressions while you're talking to them. So I like Zoom, but we're happy to accommodate people in any way that we can, whether it's Zoom, phone, in person, whatever. We can come to you. It really, for us, it doesn't matter that much. We're happy to just do what makes our clients feel the most comfortable. Another question that I got actually after our last Facebook Live session a couple weeks ago was from a gentleman named JP, and his question was, what causes the cost of someone's insurance to go up? That's actually a really good question. It's a hard question. We may do a future Facebook Live session on it, but I can give you the short answer that I give people all the time is, what causes insurance to go up? A number of factors, and nobody knows what they are. There may be some bean counters in an insurance company sitting in a room together who figure it all out, but guys like me, people on the street, we really don't know what they are. I can guess what they are, and a lot of that has to do with the claims experience of that particular insurance company in certain zip codes, because that's typically how they rate people or decide how what kind of premiums they're going to charge, is based on the claims experience within a particular zip code. So if you live or work in a zip code where there are a lot of accidents, you're probably going to be paying more for car insurance than if you live somewhere, removed from people where there aren't really a lot of cars on the road and no accidents. So it has a lot to do with that. It has a lot to do with your own claims experience, but it's supposed to only be on claims that are your fault, not based on claims that aren't your fault. There's actually a Florida statute on that. The problem with it is there's no penalty. So it says that insurance companies can't raise your rates because of a not at fault accident, but there's no penalty against the insurance company if they do that. So go figure. I don't know why it's in the books if there's no penalty, but that's the way it is. So there are a bunch of factors. In fact, that's actually a really good idea for a future Facebook Live session. Maybe I can get an insurance underwriter or somebody and see if we can peel back the secret covers on what the insurance companies, how they think about these things. But that's just my best guess based on doing this for the last 26 years. So another question that we had was, is Cullen Hemphill seeing fewer car accidents due to the pandemic? I would tell you that up until very recently, yes. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that there were just a lot fewer cars on the road. People were staying at home as they should have been. And so if you drove around at all during that time, you would know yourself that there are much fewer cars on the road. If there are fewer cars on the road, there's just going to be fewer accidents. So yes, we saw fewer accidents for a while, but our phones have now started to ring again, and so I think people are back on the road, and so our experience recently has been it's about the same as it always was. So that's kind of how it is now. It says, here's the next question. Can Cullen Hemphill represent me if I need help with my business insurance because of the pandemic? Maybe. That's the simple answer to that question. A lot of businesses have what's called business interruption coverage on their typical commercial insurance policies that are sold by most of the big insurance companies. The problem with the business interruption policies is that there are exclusions, and one of the exclusions is a virus or a pandemic kind of thing. That said, every policy is different. Every company has a different sort of language in their policy, or a lot of them do. And so there may be language that might allow you to make a claim for business interruption coverage if you own a business you're just going to have a lawyer look at it very closely and look at what the policy language actually says, and then consider the effect on your business, and then determine if there's coverage. So that's something that we can do, but I don't want to say on a Facebook Live session that, oh yeah, everything's going to be rosy and the insurance company is going to pay, damages claims for business interruption, because I think ultimately a lot of them aren't going to pay, and because the language that they've put in their policies is so restrictive that it's going to protect the insurance company instead of protecting the client, and that's kind of how a lot of the insurance stuff works these days. So. But we're happy to review any policies. If you'd like to send us a copy of your commercial policy and you have us review it and see if there's something that we can do for you or something that can be done, we're happy to do that always. And that goes for car insurance policies or homeowners policies or any kind of questions that you have about insurance. We're happy to answer them. That's a big part of our job, is talking to people on the phone or talking to them in our office or now on Zoom, and answering questions, and we're always happy to do it. And insurance is confusing, so it's something that we have we have expertise in, that because we've read so many of them over the years, that we're happy to give that or share that expertise with the community. All right, let's see if there's another question. I've lost my job and my health insurance. Can I still get medical treatment? Well, if you've been involved in a car accident, then the initial medical treatment that you get should be paid for by your personal injury protection or PIP coverage on your own policy. So it won't matter if you've lost your job and you don't have insurance, as long as you have car insurance on your car, and that should pay, or that will pay, up to a maximum of $10,000 of your first medical treatment related to an accident. Even if you don't have PIP coverage, or if your PIP coverage has exhausted, then we have relationships with some doctors' offices around town, or around the state really, where we can arrange to have the doctor see you even if you don't have insurance. And that involves a promise by us to make sure that the doctor's bill does not get ignored if we're ultimately successful in recovering money for our clients. So just because you don't have money and you don't have insurance doesn't mean you can't get medical treatment. There are a lot of good doctors out there who are willing to work with people because they want to help them. And we're happy to help connect you with those doctors if you need them, so that you can get the medical care that you need. So let me see if there's any other questions that I see here on the board. I don't see any more. So just wanted to again say thank you so much for joining me today. If you have questions that come up, if you're watching this video later, or if you have questions that come up later that you need answered, put them in the comments. We're happy to answer them. We'll go through the comments probably tonight and in the future, and if they pop up, we'll answer them directly. If you like what we put together today, give us a like on Facebook. We invite you to like our Facebook page so that you can continue to get updates from us and find out when we're doing Facebook Live sessions in the future. If there is a topic that you really would like us to talk about on a Facebook Live session, please put that in the comments as well. We're always looking for good content and good things to talk with our clients and potential clients and friends in the community about. So again, it's Friday afternoon, so happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you down the road.